Germany is the country that builds things perfectly, the country that gave the world precision engineering, the Autobahn, and some of the most reliable infrastructure in human history. So when Germany decided to build a brand new international airport for its capital city, Berlin, the world assumed it would be flawless. They announced it in 1996. They broke ground in 2006. They planned to open it in 2011. And then something happened that nobody, not the engineers, not the politicians, not the entire German government, could explain. The airport would not open. Not in 2012. Not in 2013. Not in 2014. Not in 2017. For 9 years, a completely finished airport sat empty, fully built, fully staffed, with check-in desks ready, gates assigned, and planes scheduled, and not a single passenger walked through its doors. Germany, the country that prides itself on engineering perfection, had built an airport so broken that nobody in the world knew how to fix it. Hook end. The story of Berlin. Brandenburg Airport begins not with bad engineering, but with something far more dangerous: a committee. In the early 1990s, after German reunification, Berlin needed a new airport. The old airports, Tegel and Schönefeld, were outdated, overcrowded, and inefficient. The plan was simple: build one world-class airport to replace them both. But from the very beginning, the project was run not by engineers or aviation experts, but by a supervisory board made up of politicians from the Berlin city government, the Brandenburg state government, and the federal government of Germany, three separate political bodies, each with different priorities, different budgets, and different ideas about what the airport should be. No single person had the authority to make a final decision. Every choice had to pass through layers of approval. And in that structure, that beautifully democratic, thoroughly German structure, the seeds of catastrophe were planted before a single brick was laid. Construction began in 2006. The original budget was 2.4 billion euros. The design was ambitious: a single terminal building handling 27 million passengers per year, with an underground train station, a highway connection, and a fire suppression system so advanced it would be the most sophisticated ever installed in a German airport. That fire suppression system would become the heart of the disaster. German fire safety regulations required that in the event of a fire, smoke extraction fans must activate within a precise number of seconds, drawing smoke out of the terminal through a network of ducts and vents. The system installed at Berlin-Brandenburg had 750 kilometers of electrical wiring, controlling thousands of individual components: fans, dampers, sensors, alarms. It was so complex that the software controlling it could not be properly tested because the testing process itself required running simulations that the software could not accurately model. When inspectors arrived in 2011 to certify the fire system before the planned opening, they found that nobody, not the contractors, not the engineers, not the software developers, could demonstrate that it actually worked. The opening was postponed. Engineers went in. They rewired sections. They replaced components. They brought in outside consultants. And every time they fixed one part of the system, another part failed. It was not that the system was badly designed. It was that it had been designed in pieces by different contractors at different times with different software. And nobody had ever been responsible for making sure all the pieces worked together. This was the Berlin-Brandenburg pattern. Not one catastrophic mistake, but thousands of small, disconnected decisions made by thousands of people who each assumed someone else was checking the whole picture. The ceilings in parts of the terminal were built 2.4 meters high, too low for fire trucks to enter. The escalators in one section were installed running in the wrong direction. Thousands of doors were fitted with the wrong hardware. 4,000 signs throughout the terminal pointed passengers in directions that did not match the actual layout. And underneath all of this, the electrical wiring, all 750 kilometers of it, was found to be so incorrectly installed that rather than fix it, engineers eventually decided to rip it all out and start again. The cost grew. 2.4 billion became 4 billion, then 6 billion, then 8 billion, then 11 billion euros, nearly 5 times the original budget. The supervisory board met. Reports were filed, contractors were blamed, consultants were hired and fired. 3 different technical directors resigned. The CEO was replaced. And still the airport did not open. What Berlin-Brandenburg reveals is a failure that goes deeper than bad engineering. It reveals what happens when accountability is distributed so widely that it effectively disappears. When every decision requires approval from 3 governments, no single government ever owns the outcome. When every contractor is responsible for their own section, no contractor is responsible for the whole. When every problem is someone else's problem, every problem becomes nobody's problem until the entire system collapses under the weight of 10,000 unresolved details. Berlin-Brandenburg Airport finally opened on October 31st, 2020, 9 years late during a global pandemic with almost no passengers. The old Tegel Airport, which was supposed to close the moment Brandenburg opened, had already been shut down 3 weeks earlier. On opening day, the terminal that had sat empty for nearly a decade finally saw its first travelers, walking through gates that had been ready since 2011, past signs that had been printed in 2010, beneath ceilings that engineers were still arguing about. Today, Berlin-Brandenburg operates. Passengers fly in and out. The fire suppression system works, mostly. But the airport that was supposed to cost 2.4 billion euros and open in 2011 cost 11 billion euros, opened in 2020, and is still managing debt that will take decades to resolve. And the lesson it leaves behind is not about Germany. It is about every ambitious project that grows too complex for any single person to understand, too political for any single person to control, and too expensive for any single person to stop, even when everyone in the room can see it is broken. This is causal frontier. We find the pattern before the next airport is already being built. Subscribe, because the next Berlin is already under construction somewhere in the world, and nobody is checking if the pieces fit together.